I would expect United to go and try and negotiate because they know there's an appetite to sell there as well.
Yeah.
And they're two players that clearly they've said that they want. From how I understand it, they're two players who will be open to the move as well.
That's good.
If they can do that joint deal for under 50 million for the pair of them. If you remember back to last season, United defensively, when they got injuries, they were down to the bare bones.
Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and I'm joined today for a transfer chat by football reporter for The Times, Charlotte Duncker. Welcome back to the channel. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm a bit concerned, I'm not going to lie.
Yes, there may be some thunder and lightning approaching, but there's been a storm on the pitch and off the pitch for Man United this summer. Yeah, I've gone for it already. We're going to get into some transfers. We'll talk about Jarrad Branthwaite a little bit. We'll talk about the defence generally, United's approach to the window as well, because I think it's shocked a few people, and exactly sort of the latest on what is going on at Manchester United. But let's start with Jarrad Branthwaite, because that's a player that you wrote about a couple of weeks ago, and you said that United weren't willing to pay the sort of £70 million asking price that was sort of reported at the time. Since then, obviously, United haven't paid that, and it seems to have gone a little bit cold, that one. What's the latest as far as you understand it with Jarrad Branthwaite?
Yeah, so United have had two bids rejected for Jarrad Branthwaite. I think what they were keen to let everyone know was that Everton have set this very high bar. You understand why from their point of view. He's not a player that they're desperately looking to sell. He's homegrown, so when you talk about all the PSR, the profits, that'd all go back into the club. They've got a new stadium that still needs paying off, but then everything's changed at Everton in terms of the takeover happening, not happening. Do they need to raise extra funds? Is that going to come from players? So I wouldn't say it's totally been ruled out, but I can say that United are adamant that they're not going to pay that 70 million fee. They say in a post-COVID world, it's just totally unrealistic. So I think Everton are basically saying, well, look at what Harry Maguire went to Manchester United for. Why wouldn't we want to get that much money back for one of our star players? United aren't interested in spending that much money. When they got Lenny Yoro in, they did say that that didn't mean the search for another centre-half was over. So they are still in the market. Obviously, Ligt, as you know, that we'll probably move on to him in a minute. They have done a joint bid for him to come. So we are expecting them still to look to strengthen in that position. But the Branthwaite thing does seem to have gone a bit quiet because that is a lot of money, and if Everton aren't willing to budge on their stance, then I just don't see how they move forward on that. Yeah,
it's interesting you mentioned like a post-COVID in terms of transfers, because it seems like in football we have these periods where transfer fees sort of spike and then kind of plateau and then spike. Because I remember that the transfer record is, I think it's still Mbappe, isn't it? Outside of, I think, some of the fees Saudi have paid in Europe. And that was 6-7 years ago. Yeah. And it's sort of, everything went up, Van Dijk, Maguire, Mbappe, all these sorts of players. And then, like I said, post-COVID, things seem to have slowed down a little bit. And 70 million does feel a lot for a lad who's looks good but hasn't played a lot of football. Yeah. And, you know, doesn't start for England
and when
these
also
things.
Then you consider as well that they've brought Yoro in.
Yeah.
They've still got plenty of centre-halves in the squad that are still there that they've not moved on. It's a lot. If you were adamant he was going to be your first choice centre-half with Martinez at all times, great, because obviously we know Yoro's young, isn't he? I think getting him in was really impressive in terms of, I think when you look at Manchester United's business over the last few years, everything that we've criticised them against, that transfer went against that. Like, they've gone and spent a lot of money, yes, but it's one for the future. Like, they've beaten Real Madrid to the signing of someone. It's cost them a lot of money, but it sort of goes back to maybe, I'm so sorry, there's so many flies in my face.
Don't worry about it.
It goes back to maybe like the Ferguson days when they could easily entice young players or anyone they wanted, and then we saw the change of transfer strategy, the Ed Woodward era, and now we're going into this new era, and I think it was a really positive way to start getting him in. But he is young. Is he going to be? Well, obviously he's injured now, so he's not going to start the season. But I think if you're going to spend 70 million on another centre half, sure, they've got to be a starter. Yeah. So
you'd want one of the best in the world for that, because that's up there with one of the highest fees ever. Speaking of centre backs, and one who, you know, a few years ago was touted as maybe the next best centre back in the world, as you've been completely engulfed by flies there. But Matthijs de Ligt is someone that, from the age of 18, was talked about as the next whatever, put the name on it, the next this guy, meant to be the best in the world. His career sort of been good, but maybe not quite as good as people thought. It seems as though United are clearly interested in him as well. Like you mentioned before, a joint bid for him and Mazraoui, for the pair of them. That was rejected. There was reports that United were a bit surprised that that was rejected. Do you think that there's still a gap? Obviously, there is still a gap in transfer fee. Do you expect United to go again with that?
There's a gap, but I feel like it's one of those where it doesn't seem like it's a gap like the Branthwaite gap, where Everton have come back and basically laughed at the offer. I think maybe that's one that can be negotiated, and I think De Ligt, like you say, was tipped to be the best centre-half ever, and United have been linked with him ever since I've covered United, probably for like the last 10 years. He's always been a name that has been linked with them. I think it's important. I've got a fly in my
I saw that go in, and then I thought, surely that came back out, and it didn't come back out. I think you ate it. It went in, and you went, and then you swallowed. And I thought, no way have you just eaten that.
Yeah, so De Ligt is someone who covered United for over 10 years now. He's one of them names that has consistently been linked with them. So to see him finally at Old Trafford would feel like closing a chapter to start a new one. But I think the most important thing with that is if they can do that joint deal for under 50 million for the pair of them. If you remember back to last season, United defensively, when they got injuries, they were down to the bare bones. And there was times when you were thinking, how are they going to line up? It's that sort of strength in depth at the back I think that they're going to need. So someone like De Ligt, you're right, he's not a £100 million player maybe that we spoke about him before in the past. There's a reason why they want to let him go. So I think it would be a good signing. It's that mix, isn't it? You've got Yoro, who's young and inexperienced. De Ligt has that experience but isn't at the peak of his game anymore. But you've got players like Sandro Martinez. If he comes back and has a fantastic, hopefully injury-free season, then the back line could look a lot different for United this season.
So let's move on and talk about the other sort of half of that bid then. Mazraoui, the fullback, 26 years old. I think this one has been a bit more controversial. Jay on the channel, obviously, he's spoken a lot about how liking Wan-Bissaka and the fact that you sort of have a specialist there in Wan-Bissaka. Mazraoui is someone that's got not a great injury record, has missed a lot of games in the last couple of seasons. I think is a bit more of a surprise that United are after him.
Yeah, and I think obviously in that bracket you can thought Diogo Dalot was actually one of United's better performers last season. But maybe I feel like he's one in terms of the injury record as well that you look at and you think, can he get through the whole season without an injury? And it's more about, again, what we talk about, it's that strength in depth, isn't it? I think for me, if you're looking, Wan-Bissaka looks like he's going to go. So then they do need a backup in that position, don't they? If you look at the other side, obviously I've been listening to your pods while you've been over here. Everyone's been hyping up Amas because of the way he's been playing. So that would give them strength in depth at left back, because we all know what Luke Shaw's injury record's like. So to bring someone else in on the right, I think it does make sense. I think when you look at the balance of the squad, for me, if we were going to bring in another centre half, I think maybe a midfielder for me would be higher on the priority list. But I'm not Eric Ten Hag, so he looks at that defence and he thinks that that's what he needs. He needs another full-back to add in that competition. So it's one of them where it'll be interesting to see. I would expect United to go and try and negotiate because they know there's an appetite to sell there as well. And they're two players that clearly they've said that they want. From how I understand it, they're two players who will be open to the move as well.
That's good.
So yeah, it's just a case of that famous getting the right price for them.
And I think as well, there's almost an extra pressure that comes with everyone's excitement to have Ineos and Ashworth, etc. on board. I think there also comes an added pressure to prove that you aren't going to be taken advantage of like we feel we have in the last decade. I think that they can't just go out and go 80 million for De Ligt, 30 million for Mazraoui, 75 million for Branthwaite. They have to be seen to sell well and buy the right players. So I think they've got a bit of extra pressure on them, really. Yeah,
because in the past, when you've spoken to people and it's like, we won't be pushed to pay X amount for Sancho, for arguments, we will walk away from the deal, and then you'd know that 2 weeks later they go back and probably pay more than what they wanted in the first place. So you're right in terms of it being like the new structure, the new people doing the negotiating. And this is going to be a test for them in terms of, do they get what they want for the price that they want? Obviously, there's the public price that gets put out there, isn't there? And then they'll be sat there trying to balance their books. But one thing that I found interesting was, before the window opened, we were told that they were going to be able to spend 50 million. So I think everyone was expecting it to be a quiet window, maybe like one big name coming in. Obviously, they've spent over 100 already. They're splashing the cash, but I think the key to that is obviously they've been savvy in terms of you can spread the fee over the length of the contract. So get both Xerxes and Euro in on 5-year deals. It doesn't sound quite as bad. I
think they did a little restructuring, didn't they? They didn't officially pay the buyout clause for Xerxes in the end, so they could do exactly what you're saying
exactly.
there.
So there's been like little clever things there which are enabling them to buy who they want, and obviously we don't expect that they're done either. So for them at the minute to have already got two big names in terms of their targets through the doors, already spent a lot of money, and to be still looking to spend more, I think United fans, like watching this or watching the team, they've got to be pretty happy to see that they're able to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely been exciting so far, and I think acting quickly like they did with the Euro and the Xerxes deals has been something that was encouraging, because it felt like a departure from the last couple of seasons where we're getting people after the season started. Now though, I feel like we're sort of creeping, the Charity Shield's in a week. Obviously there's still time to get deals done, but I'd like the ball to get rolling again a little bit. Before we carry on, this video is brought to you by Manscaped, the global leaders in below the waist grooming, and using our code Paddock Tour you can get 20% off and free shipping at checkout. Make sure you check out Manscaped. They have brought out their absolute magic secret weapon. It is the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, featuring all of the things you need to make sure you are keeping well scaped this summer. I mean, it might not be as hot as it is here in South Carolina, but wherever you are, you need to stay in good shape. But that's why Manscaped have brought out the Lawnmower 5.0 with multiple changeable heads. You've got the regular trimmer and the foil blade for getting close to the bone as well. And it's the ear hair and nose hair trimmer. The Weed Whacker is part of the Performance Package. You also get the liquid formulations, the tonics, the deodorants as well, and you get the Performance Boxer briefs. And to put all of that together, you get the Shed travel bag as well, to pop it in, take it out with you, and go on the go with Manscaped. Again, use the code Paddock Tour to get 20% off and free shipping at checkout. The link is in the description. Click on that, use the code Paddock Tour, and your balls will thank you. In terms of midfield then, where you mentioned you thought that should be a priority, Ugarte is one name that's been mentioned. Rabiot is another, maybe not quite as sort of emphatically. Just Ugarte to start with, what's your understanding of where that deal is? Do United want this loan with an obligation to buy that's been mentioned, or is that something that's maybe a bit further away than people are sort of suggesting?
In terms of them still being interested, he's definitely one that they still want to get in. I think if you go on to Rabiot, he's one as well. When we talk about players who've been historically linked with United over the years, he's always linked. And then we always come back to the same thing, and that United don't like to deal with his mum and and the demands of his mother and all that sort of stuff.
I'd love to meet his mum. I bet she's the nicest person ever in real life, and everyone's painted her to be this absolute horrible person. I bet she's just like any other football agent.
You should get her on the channel if he comes.
That would be fantastic, actually.
Like, take her out for dinner.
That'd be brilliant. That'd be good.
Show her the sights of Manchester.
Although that might put them off, actually. So maybe we do that after they've signed, But yeah, what's your understanding of those deals?
So as I understand it, obviously the ones that they're... Well, obviously there's lots of plates spinning, but the ones that they're working on at the minute is the joint Ligt deal.
Yeah.
And then... I can't remember who. Ugarte.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
It's been a long tour for me.
It's been a very long tour. You told me the list of the cities you've been to. It's about 30 different cities. We've only been to 3.
Yeah, so many states.
Yeah.
And I just ate a fly, so...
we might have to put that clip in now.
It's going really well for me.
Ugarte, yeah.
Yeah, the interest is definitely still there. I think we've seen that the bid's been rejected for Ligt. So I think maybe after that'd be where they look to go to. But for me, I think... midfield, if Scott McTominay goes, you're looking at that group, and I think it is missing something.
Yeah.
I think Ten Hag knows that as well. We were talking before off camera about forwards. I think obviously United have a plethora of forwards, don't they, that haven't been in the finest of form in the last few seasons. But I think the way Rashford's been on tour as well should give people plenty of hope for next season, especially after the way it was disappointing last season for them, wasn't he? So, yeah, I don't know, there seems to be lots of small little things for reasons to be optimistic for United fans.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's great to hear. That's all I wanted you to say, really. There's reason to be optimistic. And
then they'll get beat by Fulham on the Friday night.
Yeah, the Friday night as well. Everyone's watching that.
Yeah, first game of the season.
When Arsenal lost away to Brentford, first game of the season, that was fantastic. And I feel like every human in the country watched that game. That's going to be United in 2 weeks. Just as a bit more of a general thing, how do you think this window has gone, looking from a sort of reporting standpoint of, not necessarily how you deal with the club, but how it seems the club has dealt with the window itself? Does it seem different? Can you go, oh yeah, that feels like Ineos, whereas before it felt like the Glazers, or is it more of the same, really?
In terms of how we deal with the club, it seems pretty similar. I think the efficiency of the way that the deals got done, I think, shows a marked improvement on maybe what we've seen in the past. Like in the past, you start to hear names of players they're interested in, and then the negotiations seem to be going on for weeks, and then they're not going to buy them, and then they want too much money, and then they go back, and then they pay over the odds, and it's not been like that. So it does seem to have been really efficient. Obviously, Dan Ashworth didn't come in till late. Barada was on gardening leave, but I feel like in the background everyone knew everything was in place for as soon as they started. And it's going to be interesting going forward to see when they get to the end of the window if they can look back and say, this is how much money we spent. Did we get our top targets? And then I think that's the time to assess it. But so far at the minute, from a reporting standpoint, it's not, because obviously we're not unfortunately in there in the meetings, like seeing how they do things. But it just seemed to just be moving along a lot more smoothly than we've seen in the past.
Great. I can feel drops of rain on us, so I think that would be a great time to end it. Thank you very much for coming back on the channel.
Anytime.
It's been really good to chat to you. Thank you at home for watching as well. This has been an interview with Charlotte Duncker from The Times. Thank you for watching. Hit subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're going to try and see if we can get that fly, resuscitate that you tried to eat a second ago.
Please don't.
Thanks for watching.